everybody, Jerlyn Rose here for ScrapNStamp's Harvest Hop, which is on through the end of September. We've got one die set with 3 different looks for it for you to try out if you want. Alrighty then, starting out with card number 1, we've got the Alt-New picture frame. We're going to run it through with some Nina Desert Storm cardstock. Then we'll grab out some white. We'll put that in the Spellbinders Plaid Company embossing folder. You can see I was checking out to see which side I wanted to put it on for the embossing. Ran that through, setting our frame down over top. Of course, all of the craft papers look wonderful for fall, so I wanted to have one framing aspect on at least one of the cards. And the plaid embossing folder goes well with that because it already has a frame sort of built into it with all the plaid texture. You can see I also put a little bit of plaid cardstock behind that because all of these cards are going to have the pumpkin duo die set on it as well as plaid textured paper through it. Now, this was one of the Spellbinders sentiments, the Sending Sunshine. I wanted to carry tones of the orange, the greens, and the blues through these because I thought they were happy fall colors. You can choose what you want. Then, after we've done that one and mom braided out, we'll use a Honeybee, You're a Keeper sentiment. I'm another one for, hey, we've all got that stash. Let's mix and match our sentiments. We've got our custom stamp on the back. That is from ScrapNStamp. They've had them in years past. We'll check again this fall to see if they're coming out. The leftover frame that I had from the plaid cardstock, we're going to put on the inside of the card to frame our sentiments. Cutting out different colors of orange cardstock for that Tim Holtz Pumpkin Duo set. And the back base layer, they say it's got on the die that you're to put it in green. Now, I did end up edging that, as you can see here, with some orange inks so that we had the shading to give that pumpkin more roundness to it so that your perspective was correct. I'm referring to the packaging to the side, just to double check, okay, exactly where does layer number 4 go on this? Then I grabbed out the Tim Holtz Patchwork Bird because I'm going to use the plaid cardstocks for putting in each of these sets. And this is one of the old Bigs dies. So I put mine in place with a little bit of tape. I'm getting it all set up. I'm going to discover very quickly that I don't have my sandwich right because I don't use the Bigs that I have very often anymore. And so I had to double check that and get it to go through right by taking out some of my cutting plates. All right, we are piecing together the bird. I decided to make him a blue jay because we live on a mountain and we love blue jays up here. We're going to put an enamel dot on for his eyeball in black to make it stand out a little bit better. You could just put black cardstock in there or use like the gel black pen over top, but hey, I did the enamel dot. This was the Spellbinders Happy Fall for the sentiments. I did the top layer in plaid, and then we have an orange, a green, and a blue underneath. And that's why I'm being so careful placing it down because I've got them slightly offset so that you can just barely see each of those colors peeking out underneath. And that will cause a unity for everything to tie together on the front. The Blue Jays plaid feathers that he's got with his green and beige breast sitting on top of the orange pumpkin with the other blue tones in through there. The wonderful thing about that Plaid Company embossing folder too is because it's got the built-in lines, it's a lot easier to set your sentiments into place because they're already there and you don't need to grab your ruler out. All right, we're going to put some of the Nouveau Crystal and Jewel drops and some of the Ranger liquid pearls on there in orange, blue, and green. I did tap them down too hard so my orange ones flattened out quite a bit, but they still look okay in the end. I know it's not nest building season, but I cut his beak and I put a little piece of twine in there as if he was holding one to make one. Okay, on to card number 2. I put the die cuts in place and then I put the sentiment, which was from the retired Close to My Heart Hello Pumpkin sentiment set. I am using, again, Nina cardstock, the Desert Storm on this for that beige for this particular card. We're stamping down that Hello Pumpkin with VersaFine Claire, very carefully bringing it up. I brought in a second stamp from close to my heart, retired it as well, around the clock, because I just needed the time, making the pun about, hey, it's pumpkin spice time, right? Hello, pumpkin time. So I've got that all set. I am starting to emboss it with the Spellbinder's Sweater Weather embossing folder. And you can see that I inked it up with some of the oxide ink on the one side. And I kept doing this repeatedly because the oxides sit on the surface because they're that combination between pigment and ink. They don't soak in immediately the way that a regular ink will. So I kept coming back in with a darker and a darker layer of oxide ink through the brown tones. You can see I'm like slotting it into place to run it through. And it's like, okay, that wasn't enough. So let me just go around the edge again. The neat thing is it does end up having a very good sweater texture on it. I'm like, okay, it's getting there. It's a little closer, but let's go in with the darker one. So that was probably like walnut stain or something else. You just pause it and read it because I can't quite see it with me doing the voiceover right now. I'm dabbing off extras. I'm like, okay, that's getting more to the effect that I wanted. So then I smooshed down some more on my mat, spritzed it with some water, grabbed out a brush. We're going to splatter some oxide ink stains over this. All right, wiping it off with a paper towel to get that distressing action to start happening with the oxides. And because it's going to be a grungy vintage style, of course we brought in something like vintage photo or whatever brown that was around the outside edge to deepen it up. I'm mixing here picket fence with some of the distress paints to get an orange splatter. And then I put in some mica orange. I think that was the jack-o'-lantern one to splatter through the background with the orange spots. And then some picket fence just in the middle part where I knew that the steam from the coffee mug was going to be coming up. I've pulled out the cafe from Tim Holtz and I'm sorting it out between which is the tea and which is the coffee. So you can see I've got all my cardstock set down. I'm running my pieces through. This is where I'm bringing the plaid in for the coffee mug on this particular card. And I realized later this card looked like it was leaning sideways and I couldn't figure out why. And it was because the plaid was just slightly tilted a little bit. So again, referring to the front of the packaging to find out where I need to put those places into spot, gluing them down. Again, puzzle piecing, it's fun. You know, it's you get into this rhythm and you just, you know, build up layer after layer after layer. The dies are very good because they will say layer 1 in this brown, layer 2. Now I went with blues because I wanted to have the blue and orange theme going. Complementary colors, right? They work well. Deepening around the edges of that mug with some darker blue ink so that, again, perspective gives it a roundness. Distress crayons. Yes. Got out some of the pearlescent ones, smooshed them around the outside, rubbed them in. This is where I'm deepening up these particular pumpkins, and I am setting this guy into spot. So I wanted the taller pumpkin on this card so that he could go up against the mug because he's skinnier and he fits better on the one side. Now this stencil, sorry, it's a coffee bean one. I've lost the packaging. I can't remember who it's from. And just flipping it up and down to get the beans very lightly in spots that I knew would be behind the die sets and the sentiments that we're setting down. This one, I do remember, it's the ScrapNStamp coffee drinks, and I was just using the latte portion out of that because we all go for pumpkin spice lattes in the fall, or at least we should. And the person that this card is going to, yes, is pumpkin spice season, and you are going to love it. Okay, all right, I put some Versamark ink down around the outside edges, embossing glaze around the outside. I'm going to emboss this to add a little bit of lovely glossy effect just around the edge too, because hey, do we ever have enough layers on my cards? And there we are. Yeah, just embossing it quickly into spot. The crayons took it well, so I didn't have any problem with them. Gluing down the pumpkin, I'll glue down the mug next. And the mug, because I wanted it to be on level with the pumpkin, I had to put foam strips in the back, and you can see on the smaller ones I was cutting them so that I could very carefully put them on the smaller handle. All right, a little bit of glue down so I've got some wiggle room for this, because once this stuff sticks, it's down pretty good. And if you try pulling it up, and ask me how I know, if you try pulling it up, you will bend the cardstock. Inside, again, retired, close to my heart, perk up sentiment. But you know what? Grab what you got out. I'm certain that you've all got wonderful sentiment stamp sets there to try. This one just happened to go with the pun that I was doing for this particular card. Yes, pumpkin spice. Hello, you're going to love it. Pumpkin spice. Okay, and as well, underneath it, I again brought in the spellbinders, the sending sunshine. Those were in the oranges and the blues. Custom stamp on the back, and there it is going down. This is not quite the end of card number 2 because we have to bring in some bling bling. So we have this calls for confetti copper, and then some copper or coffee half pearls that we're just setting in a swirl pattern through the front of that card to draw your eye through the sentiment, the pumpkin, and the steam, and the mug down at the bottom. And then we're just using our white glossy pen to put a little bit of highlight on the mug and on the pumpkin. Oh, it's not the end of card number 2. I brought in some more mica stains or sprays and just splattered around the outside after masking off the card in the middle. Okay, on to card number 3. Now, you've already seen me cut out all the cardstock for the other ones for the pumpkin duo die set. This one I did sub out one of the upper layers with the plaid. That was the plaid that was going to be on this card. Then I brought out the Tim Holtz leaf fragments, cut it out of some white cardstock because we are going to ink smoosh. We're grabbing out our assortments of reds, oranges, greens, yellows. Bring whatever colors you want out. Smoosh them down. I am doing one color at a time. I'm smooshing them into the ink. I'm drying them with my heat gun. I'm going back in with another level to add the little splotchities on them. And then I'm bringing in the next color. And you can see I'm kind of working over on the mat because I am going to go back to the yellow area, give it a spritz with water at the end, and redab the ones in. And I started out with yellow as the lightest color so that it still had a presence. We are going to use a couple of the mica stains on here. I brought in brown tones. I gave them a spritz of water too to get it to bleed a little bit. I'm letting them dry. Then I grabbed the waffle flower postage collage set and I cut 4 of those stamps out and cut the edges off so that they would look like postage stamps, bringing in the stencil with that. I did lose some of these gradients behind the pumpkins that I put down over this stamp. So I'm taking all of this time to do a reverse gradient line back and forth, and it gets hidden up a lot. But you know, you can kind of sense that it is there a bit. And I did those in the oranges and the greens. You can see them there before I set the pumpkins in place. And that's the part where I discovered that my guillotine trimmer could not go through the thickness of that. So we had to go old school and grab the scissors out. Learned my lesson on the second pumpkin there. Checking and get us the stamp. For the embossing folder for this one, I have the honeybee burlap out. I'm going to run that through with some white. And this one was thicker, so again, I had to change my cutting plates sandwich in the background. Got it through. And now I'm bringing in one of the oxides, the very light one. That was antique linen. I did remember that, yeah. Just swiping it across the top, just catching a little bit of that oxide. Then I have glued down the leaves in a pattern across the front. I'm cutting off the ones that are hanging over the edges, and I'm going to reuse them. So you can see I've kept them. I'm going to piece them back in around the white edges that we still got where there's still a little bit too much space. So here we are checking how these pumpkins are going to lie down within the stamps, and we will glue them into spot. Now they are going to stick up quite a bit from the surface of those stamps, so we're going to have a fix for that, and you will see that in a moment. Just very carefully getting number 4 into spot. So I'm laying them onto my Big Shot, and I'm putting a smooth piece of paper over top of them so that they don't pick up any lines. And you can see, okay, it's too thick. So again, I had to change the sandwich in the background. I'm running them through to squish them together. It gives it a smoother appearance. I will put 2 on either side, use the waffle hour, the post collage, the fall sentiment stamps, and I'm doing that for the little scents that each of the stamps has. And I brought in the little maple leaf that was there too, because in Canada, they don't tend to have the money on there, like what the price is, but they do have to have a P for permanent for the maple leaf kind of down in one corner. But you know, some of the ones that do go international, they do have the price. So then I'm just free stamping with the cancellation marks because those are going to be grungy. When they go through the machines, the ink is sometimes not in some spots and it's kind of messed up and stuff. So I didn't mind rolling it back and forth on there. Now for the inside of this card, we have the Honeybee Fall for You. Very big sentiment, nice, sits just wonderful in the middle. You don't really tend to have to bring too much more in with this particular stamp. I'm doing the motley effect where I'm putting some ink down in spots and then I'm using one of my blending brushes around the outside edges of it because leaves, when they change color, they're motley quite often. Again, the greens, the yellows, the oranges. I did put 1 sentiment down at the bottom, more in the orange tone. Custom stamp on the back. And for the bling bling for this one, because we haven't had any that have got a really shiny bling bling on them. Oh, wait, sorry, I forgot. I put the 4th stamp on the inside because 3 works well on the front. But that 4th one, it would have looked kind of weird on it. So I brought it and I put it on the inside and I put its cancellation mark on it too. We're going to set that panel down on the front with some Tombow. And I will sometimes use a smooth piece of paper on the inside so that if I've got wet ink, it doesn't smear. So, all right, that's the panel going down on the front. I need to do a sentiment. So I have the Sizzix Thanks out. I am doing this in 2 colors after putting my Versamark and my rabbit tool down with the anti-static powder. That's why I've got 2 strips of paper there. I want to see which of the 2 would going to turn out the best. So I'm sprinkling a little bit of, I think it was Crackling Fire, the embossing glaze down, and then I'm using a copper fine embossing powder over top of that, shaking it all off. I did them separately so that I wouldn't contaminate them. Using the die cut to run it through the big shot. Again, finding out which one I liked best. Pieced the 2 of them together so that I've got some stability, some thickness there. And setting it down over the top of the front panel. This is the bling bling section. I was so excited about the bling bling, I had to jump to it. I used an alcohol marker with the Pink Fresh Studio Ombre drops just to change the color on the one side because they were green and blues, and so I just changed the other side to the orange. So there's all the finished cards, everybody. 3 different looks, 1 die set, all in Harvest Autumn tones. ScrapNStamp does have the sale on till the end of the month. I want to remind you guys about the hop happening on September 30th. Giveaways for subscribers only. So please subscribe. And remember, free entertainment doesn't cost you anything. All right, be that change you want to see in the world. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.